with a myriad of issues. I was just talking to Josh Green, the governor down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
I'm just not a very emotional woman at all.
No, you think much more like a dude than Gavin Newsom thinks like
Without
a dude.
question, he is more feminine than I am.
1,000%.
And I am less.
Picture this. Candace Owens, with her trademark smirk, stares straight into the camera as if she's about to roast a politician into early retirement. Because she really is, and her target is Gavin Newsom, the man who treats California like it's his personal TikTok experiment gone wrong. And you won't believe the bomb she drops, the shade she throws, and how she makes him look like a kid who just lost his lunch money, turning politics into comedy disguised as reality.
I've always been that way, like the emotional arguments and all that stuff. Doesn't like I just want logic. Tell me what the rational thing is, and I'll make a decision. Which is why I was very no masks, no this for the kids, not vaccinating the kids, leave the schools open. Just much more logical. I'm not fear based in anything that I do.
Yes.
I think fear is an awful driver of decision.
Before we move on, smash that like button and subscribe because you don't want to miss this. As California has always been marketed like a Hollywood blockbuster with sunsets, beaches, wine country, and movie stars waving from convertibles. But somewhere between the red carpets and the smog alerts, it turned into a live-action dystopian movie directed by Gavin Newsom. And just when he thought nobody would challenge his slick hair and dramatic hand gestures, along comes Candace Owens, armed with facts sharp enough to cut through his designer suits and that ever-present grin.
It is always yields to completely irrational decision making when you're doing things out of any breath of emotion. And so that is sort of why I think that, a lot of women that are left leaning find me to be quite distasteful, because how could I not be neurotic and crazy and emotional and upset by the question, so upset by the question that I don't even consider the answer.
The moment she sets her eyes on Newsom, it's less of a debate and more of a demolition derby, as he rolls in with his eco-friendly, taxpayer-funded bumper car while she brings a monster truck with spikes on the grill. And the result is exactly what you'd expect. Tire tracks all over his carefully polished image.
Nobody wants President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a f***ing con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids to being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors. Nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician. Just a stone-cold, narrative-driven politician. Nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. Whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective, and that's a human being. With Newsom, you got like this construct, this cardboard cutout of a person. I don't think people want that, but they might want it more than they want President Trump.
Because let's be honest, Newsom has mastered the art of looking important while California collapses behind him like a sandcastle at high tide. Strolling into press conferences with the confidence of a man who thinks he's auditioning for the role of President Ken in the Barbie sequel, while residents trip over tents, dodge thefts at Walgreens, and pay gas prices so high they might as well buy a horse.
Gavin ponders why Dems lost.
We lost the popular vote and we lost the electoral vote. We got crushed. But
Kennedy, I think the answer is yes. Was
it because of Israel? Yes. Interest rates? Yes. Too woke? Yes. It's like every bad policy that trickled up to the White House during the Biden administration started in California. That state is responsible for the worst politicians in modern history. And he is at the top of the list, and there are some ignoramuses on that list.
And Candace isn't here to audition. She's here to drag his resume through the mud like a toddler with a juice box. As the record speaks for itself, billions spent to solve homelessness. Yet California looks more like an outdoor camping expo than the Golden State. And Newsom insists it's complicated, which of course it is. Mainly because he seems to think throwing taxpayer cash at consultants and committees is the same as actually helping people.
Their houses have been burned, all their childhood memorabilia, all the stuff for their kids, the photos, the fucking everything they have. Everything they have is gone. All heirlooms, their mother's wedding ring, that kind of shit. Everything's burnt to the ground. And this guy's like standing in front of all this stuff, and he's got a smile on his face, and he's talking about land use.
The development plan.
Meanwhile, Los Angeles sidewalks have turned into permanent Airbnb listings, just without bathrooms, and San Francisco now offers guided tours of its finest open-air drug markets. As Candace zeroes in on this circus and points out what everyone's already whispering. California isn't solving homelessness. It's franchising it, and other states aren't sending their problems to California. California is exporting them like a subscription service. Pay $29.99 in state taxes and get your very own encampment on the corner of Main Street and Sadness Avenue. And then there's crime. Because once upon a time, California was where you went to make dreams come true. Now it's where you go if you'd like to steal $949 worth of merchandise without consequence. And that's not satire, that's actual law. As stores are now Fort Knox with padlocks and plastic shields over toothpaste while thieves treat Target like it's a buffet line. And Candace doesn't need to exaggerate. She just points to the footage of people casually strolling out with TVs under their arms as if it's Costco on free sample day. But Newsom just smiles through it as if crime doesn't exist. Statistics are just jealous numbers trying to ruin his Instagram feed, as he talks about reimagining justice, which is a fancy way of saying, we'd rather let criminals reimagine your living room as their new pawn shop inventory. And Candace, of course, calls this exactly what it is, legalized looting with a touch of progressive perfume.
He's the guy who thinks he's going to run for president when, so much of the state is absolutely unlivable. And so every project that he's championed, he's now trying to demonize conveniently, and people are not that dumb. Like, people have been through it in his state. They are sick of him. They want him to leave, and maybe that's why so many people around him are like, you should totally run for president. So he gets out of the state.
Yes. Move away.
And if you thought California was done losing residents, think again. As people are leaving faster than extras at a failed pilot taping, with the state shrinking while Texas and Florida grow, and not just because of the barbecue in Disney World, as families are tired of paying luxury rent prices for the privilege of stepping over needles on the way to their cars. Companies are fleeing like it's the last helicopter out of Saigon, and Newsom keeps insisting everything's fine, like a waiter at a 5-star restaurant serving rat stew with a garnish. While Candace doesn't just highlight the exodus, she makes it sound like a punchline, as California's population decline has turned into the world's most expensive U-Haul commercial, with no need for billboards when your governor himself is the biggest motivator for packing up and heading east. And the irony is that half the people leaving are liberals who voted for the policies that ruined their state in the first place, now bringing that same recipe for disaster to Arizona, Texas, and Tennessee. But what really lights Candace up is that Newsom doesn't see any of this as failure. He sees it as a resume, strutting around like California is his proof of concept for America's future. Imagining applying for a job at NASA and handing in a paper airplane that immediately bursts into flames, which is exactly Newsom's pitch for higher office.
Urgence has made Gavin Newsom suddenly vulnerable to being recalled. It looked like Gavin Newsom was going to kind of cruise to a victory here and avoid the recall, but COVID might be changing things a little bit.
Well, part of the reason I wrote the column was I am having a bit of a change of heart, and part of it is because last time I was on Glenn Beck's show with you, Glenn asked me, and I said that I didn't think that the recall was going to win, and I don't think that that's necessarily my position today. To be clear, I'm not betting that Gavin Newsom is going to lose. That would be just too good. The world doesn't seem to work that way.
She hammers the point. Newsom isn't governing California. He's auditioning for the White House, as every speech, photo op, and smug grin is part of the campaign he pretends isn't happening, while his state literally runs out of water and power, and he's busy oiling his hair and rehearsing how to blame Texas for everything. And here Candace turns California into Exhibit A, not just saying it's failing, but mapping out exactly why it's a warning sign for the rest of the country, with high taxes, unchecked crime, collapsing infrastructure, runaway homelessness, and the illusion of green energy that somehow still relies on fossil fuels to keep the lights on, arguing that California is a prophecy of what happens when style outruns substance. Speeches replace solutions, and a governor thinks good hair can substitute for good leadership, while Newsom keeps playing the role of America's cool uncle, handing out platitudes like mints with that permanent expression of someone just complimented on his watch. And Candace mocks this mercilessly, pointing out that if charm and charisma could fix potholes, California's streets would be paved in gold by now, as she also brings entertainment into the mix, roasting her opponents in a way that's both scathing and hilarious, because Newsom says progress. She hears regress. He says equity. She translates it to excuses. He says California is a model, she quips. Yes, a model for a before picture in a bankruptcy ad. And the more he polishes his words, the more she sharpens hers.
Well, in a kind of reptilian way. I mean, charming in the sense that his whole life is devoted to winning people over.
Yes, yeah.
Kind of like Bill Clinton was, and I think he's good at it. But I also think, someone said to me the other day, Newsom could pass a lie detector test on saying anything. Like, there's a coldness inside that
he's
allows
a sociopath. I think he's a snake oil salesman. I think he's a liar, and I think that he destroyed the state of California. Full stop. I've got no love for Gavin Newsom.
And the audience can't look away because it's not just politics, it's spectacle. As Newsom brings the Hollywood gloss and Candace brings the steel-toed boots, turning it into less of a debate and more of a reality show where one contestant talks about his future projects while the other keeps reminding everyone that his current project is already in flames. And beneath the comedy, the stakes are serious, as Candace points out that California isn't just an isolated island of dysfunction. Its policies spread like glitter, unwanted, hard to clean up, and always showing up where you least expect them, whether it's environmental mandates, soft on crime laws, or bloated welfare programs. With what starts in California often shipped nationwide, and she's warning loudly that America doesn't need a repeat performance, turning the clash into a metaphor for two competing futures. On one side, Newsom's California vision, progressive, government-heavy, and wrapped in the aesthetics of social justice. And on the other, Candace's call for accountability, personal responsibility, and policies that don't treat crime like a quirky lifestyle choice, as it's not just a war of words, but a war of worldviews. With Candace Owens like a stand-up comedian armed with footnotes, while Gavin Newsom is like a motivational speaker stuck in a self-help loop, pointing to real problems with real evidence while he drafts the trailer for Gavin 2028, the hair strikes back.
For a little over a week now, California Governor Gavin Newsom has been posting in the style of President Donald Trump. And he's getting a lot of admiration for it. So he's basically engaging in this trolling campaign, and he's been very successful with it on X. Many of those posts have actually racked up tens of thousands of likes. And look, it does play well in the paradigm of left versus right. When you see politics as team sports and nothing more than tribal politics.
And just when you think she's finished, she twists the knife, questioning whether this man whose state is hemorrhaging people, money, and sanity could really be the Democratic Party's secret weapon. And Candace laughs at the idea, because if California is the blueprint, then America's future under Newsom looks less like the Golden State and more like a blooper reel. And by the end, she's not just calling him out. She's dismantling the illusion, as Newsom's leadership isn't a shining example but a cautionary tale. The story of how a state with endless resources, natural beauty, and economic power managed to turn itself into a punchline. And she's making sure the rest of the country gets the joke before it's too late, leaving the question lingering. Will America fall for the slick packaging and polished hair? Or will it notice the dumpster fire smoldering just behind him? Because Candace Owens has made her case loud and clear. California isn't the dream. Under Gavin Newsom, it's the nightmare that keeps selling itself as a brochure. And the irony is delicious, as Newsom struts into every photo op like he's the second coming of Camelot, ready for the presidential stage lights to hit his hair at the perfect angle.
I've listened to so many of my colleagues and members of the media say that these are mostly peaceful protests. It's like saying that Harvey Weinstein is mostly a feminist because he didn't rape every woman who came into his office. He only raped some of them. Number three, in terms of Governor Newsom, his record shows this. He's the dictionary definition of weenie.
But behind him, the reality is less shining city on a hill and more a burning dumpster on Venice Beach. As the state's GDP might be massive, but so is the debt, the regulatory suffocation, and the number of people sleeping in tents 1 block away from luxury coffee shops charging ridiculous prices for a latte. And Candace doesn't just poke holes in the image, she pulls out a sledgehammer, pointing out that this is a man running a state where Hollywood celebrities need private security to pick up their mail. Moms carry pepper spray to the grocery store, And small businesses have to factor theft into their monthly expenses like it's an overhead cost. And still Newsom insists California is leading the nation, sure. Leading right off a cliff and taking anyone foolish enough to follow along with it. With the homelessness crisis alone acting as an ongoing parody of failed governance, billions spent, endless promises, new programs launched every year with fancy names that sound like they were brainstormed during a yoga retreat. And yet the streets remain filled with tents, needles, and human suffering. And Candace doesn't just criticize, she skewers. Comparing California's so-called solutions to putting glitter on a landfill, sparkling in the sunlight but still unbearable in smell. While the funny part is Newsom pretends this is progress, throwing around charts and numbers and grinning like a game show host, revealing the wrong prize. Because according to him, California's plan is working. But according to anyone with eyes, it looks like a camping convention nobody signed up for.
Mel, any message from you to Governor Newsom or Karen Bass tonight?
Spend less on hair gel. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, what can I say to them? Not big admirer of either. I don't like them either.
Then comes the crime issue, as California, under Newsom's visionary policies, has basically turned shoplifting into a low-stakes hobby. So if your side hustle used to be flipping sneakers, congratulations. You can now skip the wholesaler and grab them directly from the store shelf thanks to Proposition 47. And Candace calls this what it really is, a government-sanctioned shopping spree. Making it clear that in Newsom's California, criminals aren't punished, they're practically rewarded. Like a loyalty program where instead of points you get free stuff and a pat on the back for reimagining justice. While businesses are closing doors faster than Newsom can rehearse his next campaign speech. And Candace points out that even Walgreens, a company that sells Band-Aids and Advil, has had to lock up deodorant like it's gold bullion. And when something as basic as toothpaste has to be sealed in a fortress, maybe, just maybe, the governor's policies aren't working. And let's not forget the taxes. As California boasts the highest state income tax in the country, and for what? So people can enjoy crumbling infrastructure and potholes that look like sinkholes. And Candace mocks the absurdity of paying luxury prices for bargain bin governance, painting the picture of a state that charges champagne prices, but serves flat soda and stale crackers, resulting in a mass exodus that looks less like random migration and more like a coordinated escape plan, as Californians leave by the thousands, flooding states like Texas and Florida. With U-Haul trucks in such high demand, they're basically a black market commodity.
Viewed Gavin. I moderated, I think you brought it up, I moderated the debate with DeSantis. And I have tried to reason with this man, and he does not listen, ever. Maybe, is this the tipping point for him? Did you get the feeling he really wants to change?
I don't know. I think he wants to be president, Sean, more than anything.
Candace compares it to a bad party where everyone leaves early. And the only one insisting it's still fun is the host, standing alone in his kitchen pouring himself another glass of overpriced wine. But the punchline, the cherry on top, is Newsom's ambition, as he actually believes this resume qualifies him for the White House, walking around like California's record is something to brag about, as though the rest of America is clamoring for higher taxes, dirtier streets, and rolling blackouts. And Candace laughs at the absurdity, pointing out that if California is the model, America's future under Newsom looks like a cautionary tale written by people who failed Economics 101, while she also makes the personal clash entertaining, as Newsom's style is all about appearance, slick hair, perfect suits, and speeches that sound rehearsed in front of a mirror. And Candace dismantles that persona like it's her part-time job, painting him as a politician so obsessed with optics he'd probably schedule a photo shoot during a natural disaster. With California sliding into the Pacific Ocean, while Newsom still practices his smile in the reflection of the waves. And the best part is how Candace exposes the difference in delivery, as Newsom speaks in lofty terms that sound like they were written by a PR intern who just discovered a thesaurus, while Candace cuts through the fluff with the sharpness of a roast master. Hearing wishful thinking when he says visionary leadership and translating Cal is a model to California being the warning label on America's medicine
Gavin
model.
Newsom and Karen Bass have already proven their incompetence and poor leadership during the Los Angeles wildfires. Now, as we experience rampant lawlessness and civil unrest, it's never been more clear California's in a state of turmoil. And I ask my fellow Angelenos, why are Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass still in office?
And the more she dismantles him, the more his future ambitions look like a bad joke. As could this really be the Democratic Party's ace in the hole, the man presiding over a state people are literally fleeing? And Candace suggests that if this is their plan, Republicans should be sending him flowers for making their job easier. Because nothing says vote for me like a track record of empty promises, high taxes, and policies that make toothpaste harder to buy than a luxury car. And the kicker is how she frames it as a choice for the rest of America. Do you want a country that looks like Newsom's California? Expensive, unsafe, and crumbling under its own weight, or leadership that actually acknowledges problems and fixes them? As it's not just a jab at one governor, but a warning shot aimed at anyone who thinks charisma can substitute for competence. Because in the end, Candace Owens versus Gavin Newsom isn't just commentary. It's theater, it's satire, and it's a preview of the battles to come, with one side hiding behind polish and platitudes while the other rips the curtain down with facts, wit, and zero patience for nonsense. And when the dust settles, Newsom looks less like a presidential hopeful and more like a parody of everything wrong with American politics.